At least 5 billion rand in funds meant for NSFAS students has been mishandled, according to the SIU.
5 billion rand lost to basically payments made to students who did not qualify, either fraudulently or because of loopholes.
From dodgy contracts to funds being paid to ghost students, over 40,000 students from 76 institutions received funds that they were not supposed to get in the first place. This is amid heads of this scheme being implicated in corruption.
Actually, these are students who were ineligible to be funded to begin with.
And now Outer wants the president to fire everyone involved.
Why should I resign? I have no need to resign.
But the downfall of this state scheme could be seen a mile away.
Also, I want to repeat this because I said this, by the way, with also this Mdwaba nonsense.
So it's been revealed that the National Student Financial Aid Scheme spent about 5 billion rand on students who don't qualify for that funding.
How were the financial controls so poor?
The NSFAS model was always going to fail due to both leadership corruption and widespread dishonesty among applicants. A considerable number of students seeking financial assistance resort to falsifying their backgrounds. For instance, some claim to lack parental support, utilizing their grant-receiving grandparents' information for applications, only for their actual parents to surface on graduation day. Some students go to the extent of submitting copies of death certificates for their grandparents and falsely asserting orphan status. This pervasive dishonesty has stirred discussions on various social media platforms. Some have even pointed out a concerning trend of students from private schools attempting to access the scheme. While it's acknowledged that financial constraints drive individuals to dishonesty, the system was never intended to benefit those already privileged. Despite its noble intent to support disadvantaged South African students, the NSFAS scheme has come under scrutiny. An investigation by the Special Investigating Unit uncovered that over 5 billion rand was disbursed from 2018 to 2021 to students who did not qualify. This revelation has fueled claims that the system's collapse is inevitable. Apart from social media, the South African Union of Students, SAUS, is another entity that has been saying that the National Student Financial Aid Scheme is on the brink of collapse, arguing that the scheme was undergoing a realignment and modernization effort to cater to the needs of its more than 1 million student beneficiaries. In an official statement, the union said that NSFAS was close to collapse, citing a failure to disburse monthly allowances to over 70,000 students since the end of May, after it switched to a direct payment system. SAUS said, "These are students of poor and working-class background. This enormous failure of NSFAS in upholding its mandate to service them with excellence and dignity has exponential consequences. This will subsequently lead to their academic and financial exclusion, further plunging the poor and working class into abject poverty, with no prospects of alleviating themselves from the clutches of poverty." In response to these allegations, NSFAS stated that it was undergoing a comprehensive review of all processes and operations related to its allowances models. The organization said it had hired a new team to implement a student-centered model, with the direct payment system as a pivotal component. The Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, instructed the NSFAS board to submit a thorough report on its service delivery within 3 weeks. Nzimande emphasized the need for close monitoring of critical service delivery aspects, such as the timely disbursement of student allowances and the ongoing accreditation of student accommodation. The minister's directive came in response to an investigation by Worksman's attorneys into irregularities, poor governance, and mismanagement within the financial scheme. The inquiry was prompted by the plight of numerous students who were left without stipend payments. What is happening at NSFAS is intriguing and somewhat complex, with a lot of details to navigate. Despite the confusion, I'll do my best to simplify the situation. So, walk with me here. In August, the CEO of NSFAS was suspended amid allegations that he had personally selected certain service providers to distribute student funds. In response, Nongogo implicated NSFAS chairperson Ernest Kosa, accusing him of involvement in certain questionable activities. Nongogo claimed that during his suspension, his electronic signature was used without his consent to authorize the issuance of student accommodation offtake. Additionally, he alleged that 12 agreement letters were dispatched to potential service providers using his signature. Nongogo contended that his removal was tied to lucrative agreements involving companies allegedly hand-picked by a senior government official and the chairperson of the scheme's board, Ernest Kosa. Kosa, however, refuted these allegations. In October, NSFAS dismissed its CEO, Andile Nongogo, following accusations of corruption, fraud, and illegal tender dealings. The decision came after a forensic report conducted by law firm Worksman's attorneys and advocate Tembeka Nchukaitobi was disclosed by the company. The investigation revealed that Nongogo had a connection with one of the companies chosen for the new direct payment system. Basically, the dismissed CEO had selectively chosen 4 firms to directly disburse monthly allowances of R1, 650 to approximately 1.1 million students. This deviated from the previous payment method through tertiary institutions. The board identified a blatant violation of procurement laws and processes in the controversial tender. It was uncovered that some service providers had a history with the CEO from their time at Services Setters, where he held the position of CEO. The City Press obtained a list of these companies, which have now been granted a 20-year lease from NSFAS to provide accommodation for students benefiting from the scheme. Documents obtained by News 24 indicate that NSFAS disbursed approximately $37 billion to universities in January to cover tuition, accommodation, monthly allowances, and other benefits for 547,980 students. An additional $10 billion from NSFAS's $47 billion budget for 2023 is allocated to TVET colleges. The 4 fintech firms involved are Co-Invest, Izaga Holdings, Noriko Corporation, Tenet Technology. However, an examination of records reveals that despite being appointed to distribute allowances, these fintech companies have only made payments to 390,000 students since the contract commenced in July. This leaves 157,980 beneficiaries unaccounted for, and approximately R260. 7 million remains untraceable. It's worth noting that these companies have already been notified of the termination of their contracts. NSFAS, as communicated through Chairperson Kosa, claims to have supported 1.1 million students in the current financial year. A source, wishing to remain anonymous according to these media houses, expressed concern over the unexplained disappearance of funds, suggesting the possibility of fraud. Oh, and the CEO attempted to contest and challenge his suspension in court. In his legal submissions, he contended, "Under the relevant clauses of my employment agreement, the board lacks the authority to abruptly terminate my contract. Termination is permissible only under specific circumstances, none of which apply here, and in cases of alleged misconduct, only after a disciplinary hearing." In a letter dispatched to Nongogo on Monday night, Ernest Kosa, the chairperson of the NSFAS board, expressed dissatisfaction with Nongogo's response to the inquiry into why he should not be terminated. Kosa stated in the letter, "Upon reviewing your correspondence, we find that your reply fails to address the adverse findings outlined in the investigation report. Instead, you have chosen to question the process and sidestep the allegations made against you in the report." Ultimately, the company terminated his employment. Although he contested this decision in the labor court, his appeal was rejected. Interestingly, the same chairperson, who was vocal during that case, later found himself entangled in a messy situation. The mess at NSFAS does not end there. On January 4th, the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, published a report alleging that service providers contracted by the NSFAS had made substantial kickback payments, totaling millions of rand, to Bladen Zimande and the chairperson of the NSFAS board, Ernest Kosa. The report further claimed that a sum of at least 1 million was directed towards funding a South African Communist Party. Additionally, OUTA released voice recordings from 2 meetings held in August, featuring discussions between Kosa and Thulan Tumba, a representative from Coinvest Africa, and the spouse of Chegofatso Ntumba, one of its directors. Nzimande, who serves as the chairperson of the SACP, refuted the claims presented in the OUTA report. He insisted that he had never utilized his department's budget to support the SACP and countered that the leaked recordings by OUTA implicating corruption by NSFAS service providers were baseless and intended to be malicious. In contrast, Kosa took the proactive step of requesting a voluntary leave of absence in response to these allegations. He vehemently rejected the voice recordings, dismissing them with contempt. In light of COSA's request for a leave of absence, NSFAS issued a statement indicating that the board had promptly decided to engage an independent legal firm to investigate the accuracy of the allegations against him. The outer report emerged as a result of an inquiry into Andile Nongogo, the former CEO of NSFAS, who was dismissed in October 2023 based on a report by Worksman's attorneys and advocate Tembeka Inchukaitobi SC. The investigation focused on allegations of irregularities concerning direct payment contracts with 4 companies. At the end of the day, NSFAS was never going to survive, with 3 top key members implicated in corruption within a scheme designed to support previously disadvantaged students. This unfortunate situation directly contributed to the postponement of the scheme's opening dates. Delays in these dates, in turn, extend the approval periods, resulting in a potentially difficult start to 2024 for numerous students with concerns of another fees must fall. Protest looming. Conclusion. But the truth is, the current NSFAS model is not and will never be a solution to free education. During the fees must fall protests of 2015 to 16, the call for free higher education gained prominence on the national stage. In response, former President Jacob Zuma initiated a commission of inquiry into higher education and training, led by Judge Arthur Heha. The purpose was to explore the feasibility of fee-free higher education and to investigate alternative solutions to address the issue. The Commission's findings were pivotal for the national discourse. It concluded that the South African state lacked the fiscal capacity to provide fee-free university education to all students in need. Furthermore, even if it were financially viable, Judge Jonathan Heha's Commission of Inquiry argued against offering fee-free education, emphasizing that it would not be equitable. Highlighting the fact that South African university graduates already benefit from a heavily subsidized educational system and experience significantly increased lifetime earnings. The Commission then suggested that these graduates should shoulder some responsibility for the cost of the education that facilitated their personal gains. The Commission put forth a suggestion for a public-private partnership, advocating that the state, private sector, and students collectively contribute to funding university education. It specifically endorsed an income-contingent loan scheme, with the South African Revenue Service handling collections, targeting university students. Repayments would commence once graduates' incomes surpassed a designated threshold, ensuring sustainability as beneficiaries would repay the scheme upon securing employment. While there are alternative models, like an income share agreement, where students commit to paying a portion of their income over a fixed period, the core concept remains consistent: cost sharing between students and the government, potentially involving the private sector, with a focus on ensuring the long-term viability of the funding scheme. However, at the 54th ANC National Conference, a mere 2 months after the Commission's report release, then President Zuma disregarded Heha's recommendations. Instead, he announced free education for poor and working-class South Africans as his final act as ANC president. Unfortunately, the newly elected ANC president, Cyril Ramaphosa, endorsed Zuma's declaration and pledged to implement fee-free tuition shortly thereafter. And he hasn't